Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us to kick off this Future of Content community that we have put together. It's nice to see you all here. I want to start off by thanking you all for being here, thanking my team for making this possible, thanking our business coordinator who you just saw, and her colleagues who have kind of worked tirelessly for this, back and forth. Our kitchen staff for providing us with all the delicious food that you're tasting. And oh, how could I forget? Our speakers and panelists for today. I knew I was missing something, right? Oh, and our dear Sven for volunteering to do the video for this event. We appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much. He's doing it for free, so. I will now pass it on to one of our co-organizers, Claudia, to introduce our group and what the purpose is.
Thank you, Bala. Well, so cool to see you all here. I'm super excited. I have to say it took a while to set this up. I remember having coffee with Kelly and Larry a year ago. Also, I recall a conversation with Larry when he was still living in the US, and we talked about this idea. So why setting up this community? Well, we thought it's great to have a space in Amsterdam where we can talk and discuss content in a broader context with technology as a catalyst, but also as an innovative force. And we thought the community is actually a great forum to do that. And that's why we're all here. And as you probably all know, at the heart of every community are the members, so you that are all sitting here. And so if you want to support us, if you have any ideas, please reach out to us. We will start this evening with a talk and presentation with Chip, and I had to write this down. So Chip will discuss emerging trends with component collaboration, headless delivery, and semantic AI in supporting customers' endless pursuit of knowledge. Chip.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's nice to meet everybody here. It's nice to see everyone in person. I feel really welcomed to being the first speaker. And so I really look forward to talking this evening, and then perhaps during breaks talking with each of you. Rarely do we get to meet all together as content people, wherever we come from. You know, usually at dinner table conversation, it's not about what I do at work usually. Well, sometimes, but it's really fun though to be here because I've been an IKEA customer for years, probably as most of you have. And I have like 1,000 of those little wrenches that come with all the different tables. Can you return those? Anyway, so, but in my role, what I do, I work for a company called RWS. We're based here in Amsterdam. And I actually live in Den Haag. I work in an office down there called Fonto, which is a structured authoring application, and that's the area I work with. I've been in structured content now over 20 years. And in my role, I work mostly with our customers and partners in adoption. So HP, Dell, Avaya, we have a number of big tech companies, global, and here also in Europe. Originally, I'm from the States. I grew up actually, I got into this industry in graphic arts in high school and college. And so I was a graphic artist when I first started out. And then I studied typography. So for a long time back, many years ago, I was a typesetter. And so if you want to talk about kerning and ligatures and things like that, I'd be happy to talk. Okay, somebody knows what a ligature is, you do. So I'd be happy to talk about that. But then for the last 20 years, I've been working more in technology and working around components. So what I want to do is test this real quick. Oh, good. I want to talk about how content components help in customer experience. And I know many of you work with customer content, and many of you also work with content that's product-based. And my company, I work with a lot of engineers, software people. and the information they write versus what customers need is very different. And so over my years, I've really come to appreciate technical writing and experts in marketing and so forth who transform that knowledge that's usable. I found this slide, I found it very kind of informative around, it's from Gartner, that I want to talk a bit about self-service. So, and many of you work on websites, apps, whatever you're working on. The idea is that we want to have the customer have that information accessible online, hopefully, answer their questions, whatever, so they don't have to talk to somebody or email or whatever. So that's kind of my definition of customer self-service. So 70% of customers are using self-service channels at some point. And 40% of that, of the live volume could be solved through self-service channels, but unfortunately only 9% of customers actually fulfill and find their answers when they're doing this online journey. Now I'm going to say that varies by industry, but this is probably mostly tech industries. So a lot of customers I work with are trying to reduce that time to get that information that's more knowledgeable for the particular customer. And by the way, I like to think of as employees and partners as customers as well, even though I won't say them tonight. But many times, you know, there's 7,000 people in my company. I know IKEA is a lot bigger, but you know, you think about the information that has to be transformed within our organizations as well. So over the years, we've been using a term called intelligent content. And I've talked a lot about how do you activate that for digital business? How do you make that relevant for the business that you have within your organization? At the middle of it is what we call a component content management system, which I won't talk about today. I'm only going to take 20 minutes. But there are technologies that will manage these things as components. But the first thing I like to think about is identifying high-value information within your organization. And this is long-standing information that may get updated, changes, frequently revised. Perhaps it's translated, localized into different languages. There's a high risk associated with this information not being correct, and it's critical to your business. So in product companies, that's very relevant around product, you know, components, pieces, especially in manufacturing, where things have to be assembled and everything has to be very accurate. I also work with a lot of pharmaceutical and life sciences companies. And we've all experienced this the last 4 years of information and how relevant that is for consumers through the pandemic. One of our customers is EBSCO Health, based in Boston. And they update articles from medical journals for doctors, nurses, and so forth. They saw a 400% increase in information within the first 90 days of the pandemic. And so they're utilizing our technology to manage and support that. The other thing we want to think about is centralizing content and information. Many times it's dispersed in organizations. In worst case scenarios, it's SharePoint, Google Drive, oh boy, who knows, you know, wherever it's stored, or it's documents. And one of the terms I like to do is call it a single source of truth. If you read in some of the consultants talk about this, is to try to develop that single source of information. And the way to do that is also unify your collaboration. And a lot of the online applications allow you to do that. The other area we're going to talk about tonight around taxonomies. And I like to think about taxonomies, that's the data, you know, that's the facets, those are the classifications you see when you're looking for tables or kitchen or whatever, and they're very rich taxonomies, is how do we make those smarter so it's more relevant information? And honestly, creating information governance, which many of you do in your organizations. A lot of times with technology won't work unless you have decent governance and processes behind to make it work. The last thing we look at then is how do we enable this intelligent content as components. And the characteristics of components, and many of us are going to talk about it this evening, is around its atomic information. It's very relevant. In some industries, it's very much a single topic of information or a single point of information. Now, the size of it can vary. At EBSCO, they get very long, but other, HP is another customer of ours, and Dell, they're very small bits of atomic information. There's structure around it. Structures is usually by tagging or structure. It can be XML, it can be JSON, it can be a number of different ways of tagging or giving that structure to that information. Another concept that's hard for many folks is format free. And many of us experience this with our phones or my watch when you're trying to read something and it takes forever. Oh, it's Siri just, okay, you can go to bed. Anyways, format free is really important because we don't know what devices our customers, employees, and partners are going to be viewing and utilizing this information. Or probably even more important is, are humans or is it machines that are reading our information? And that's the 40-minute talk, but today we're going to keep 20 minutes. But we have to have the idea that this information is to be consumed by bots and other aspects as well as humans. Semantically rich is one of my favorites. We all love the way, well, most of us in this room especially, appreciate relationships between content. And no matter how you structure it, and by the way, the standard I call that was mentioned, it's called DITA, which is an XML standard, has a very well-defined way of creating hierarchy and semantics and richness and relationships within that content. You can do the same with knowledge graphs and other bits of taxonomy, but semantically rich is very important, especially if machines or bots are going to be reading our information and utilizing it. And finally, around interoperability. This was another one I had a hard time wrapping my head around, but many of our customers have partners or OEMs that resell the product or rebrand the information. So if they have data that's able to go in and substitute product names or company names, instead of my name, it's your name, and so forth, it's very important to set up your information as interoperable. So of course, AI is driving a lot of the technology that we're utilizing today. And I don't really want to talk so much tonight about ChatGPT and other applications, but I want to talk a bit more about semantic AI, semantic richness that AI can bring our particular content. So what are some of the benefits that we see working with components? And findability and insights is semantic search, having much more relevant searches and so forth. Instead of seeing the whole universe, I can narrow down to a specific area of information that I want to find. We also can gain insights on knowledge graphs. Who works with knowledge graphs in here? Okay, there's a few of you. And I know we're going to have a conversation later about it. Knowledge graphs really drive a lot of behind the internet. I mean, it's what makes Google run. And honestly, it's what Google built over the last 20 years. And I remember I actually worked in Silicon Valley in the late 90s, and my friend went to work for Google. And, well, he's long retired, but he was a research scientist that worked a lot with relationships of what we became and known as knowledge graphs. But knowledge graphs help create relationships or understand concepts and relationships to find related information. There's nothing more frustrating to be finding a search only to find a topic that's not relevant, but oh, there's a related concept that shows you how to do what you want to. It's interesting, as humans, we can make choices when we have a much smaller selection of choices. I'm going to show an example in a minute. And then, of course, the Internet of Things. Again, we have bots, we have other devices, appliances, other types that could be consuming information. One of the other terms I like is knowledge as a service. Knowledge as a service makes this information or knowledge much more relevant and contextual for what I'm doing. We have a number of customers in automotive. Tesla is one of our customers. And the information that comes up on the screen comes from structured content components. And through their taxonomy and metadata, they're able to drive very contextually what the issue is for that person who's driving, in Amsterdam or driving in Copenhagen or whatever. It's amazing what they can do to make it relevant for the situation you're in. And that's, of course, really transparent to me as a user. The other thing is to think about components, not documents. And I can't tell you how many customers that we have who think, well, going on the internet is putting a PDF file out, and that's it. And we all know how easy PDFs are to not see on our devices and search and so forth. So the other thing we'd like to think about are content hubs. Sometimes these are called knowledge portals or other types of information. And really building intelligence into our portals for collaboration. One of our customers was a financial organization in the States. Their project to centralize around components, they called it One Right Answer. They actually, when we did our early research, they had 4 different separate databases that sometimes had conflicting information. And if you're applying for a mortgage or financial help or whatever, this is really relevant, important information to have. So what do we start thinking about then is this digital content hub then has these intelligent content characteristics we just talked about. But then we start looking at the particular delivery channels that are possible. I've talked about mobile, smart apps and home, chatbots. There's also the contact center, support centers. HP, their field engineering group, uses our technology to diagnose problems on printers in the field. And my other favorite one are FAQs. And that's where content goes to die, one of my friends once told me. It's like, well, we've got, at Dell, they have 28 different content types for every product. This a few years ago. And anything that didn't fit, they put it in FAQ, anyways. But if we have this kind of core opportunity to have a hub and have semantics and so forth to go into our content components, it makes it much more relevant for our audience. I haven't really talked a lot about localization, but the idea is also components can be easily localized into different languages as required and managed and automatically display in Portuguese or French or Dutch, depending on the locale that a particular user is working from. So this is an example from HP. And this is the chatbot application on the left-hand side, the way it used to look. And it's terrible. It's a document-based block bit information trying to answer a question. And what they found was poor responses from solving and answering questions for customers. After they worked with us to install our approach, the idea was that as a customer, I could look at 4, 5, 6 subjects, and these are actually picked up, they're called short descriptions within the DITA topic, that typically they found a high percentage of customers can click on the right area that they want to get to. It's almost, we can never exactly get them to the right exact topic, but if we get them close enough, humans and even bots can then navigate to give a more relevant answer for the particular customer. So another application is around a solution detection. We have another customer of ours is called Applied Materials in California, and they manufacture semiconductor manufacturing equipment, so ASML, Intel, all the different tech companies utilize applied materials for their huge semiconductor manufacturing systems. A lot of their field engineers are based in APAC covering various manufacturing areas. One of the problems they have is that these large devices, they're manufactured in different locations, and they're actually assembled for the first time at the customer location, typically in these very large controlled environments that, and you've seen the space, the bunnies and all that, that's the kind of environments they can be working in. The problem they had was the documentation was very onerous. So we were able to help what we call solution detection. And a lot of time a diagnostic code will come up with what's going on in a problem to resolve. And they created a very rich taxonomy that then could associate that particular code, which they call a smart applications, into their intelligent content components to troubleshoot and try to come up with a recommendation to resolve and manage the issue. So that's probably the highest end kind of applications I've seen of people being able to work with components to identify and find the right knowledge for that particular user. So this is another example I mentioned earlier about automotive. And this is the authoring environment. This is a structured authoring environment, where on the left-hand side I have a topic about filtering in a cabin. And then I can see my steps down below. And the right-hand side is more or less my table of contents, the actual structure. And what I can actually do is scan the content to develop the tagging from the taxonomy that's going to associate the terms for my knowledge graph in this content. What we have found is that AI, that semantic AI I mentioned, can generally get pretty good selections. But a human expert can then look at these, and they could take out certain tags that aren't relevant for this particular topic. So they have the best of both worlds to be able to control and manage that particular approach. A couple last slides. So I do want to bring up around generative AI. What are some of the things that we're working on? Earlier, before we started, I was talking with someone around the fact a lot of our customers, the writers, have to research a lot of technical information to develop what ends up being customer documentation. And Thermo Fisher is one of our customers. They do life science medical devices. And it says up to 50% of a writer's time is researching internal documents to write the product documentation. So they're using generative AI, chatbot, or ChatGPT, to actually scan the documents, all these engineering documents, and generate a first draft for the writer to actually, a medical writer, to go through and correct let's just say the mistakes that are made by ChatGPT. But one of the things we're working on is the ability to have ChatGPT as more or less a side panel within the authoring environment, where you can free form and ask questions, and then have that put into your structured content as a component. Some of the benefits then that we've talked about is the ability to really achieve your goals of categorization, faceted search, and recommendations of your content. One of my favorites is increasing information relevancy and discovery. I love it when something figures out what I'm really trying to find and gives that information that's relevant to the situation I'm in. The other thing is, how do we automate the tagging of information, but still have humans have the ability to review and make sure it's accurate? And then finally, information that really understands the intent of what your customer is trying to do. So thank you very much.